for being with us here tonight. It is a real honor. And I'll tell you what's really nice also is that we do get to see a few different people, because I can see that you're, and I'm sure that your father is hiding in the background and your mother is there in full glory, ready for all the nachas. And it's wonderful to have you. You know what? I wonder if Miriam would have come. I'm going to try. Let me see if I can try get Miriam to get onto here.
If she's awake. I mean, I guess it's not that
Miriam,
late.
of course she's awake. She's
Yeah,
probably partying somewhere out, and where we don't know, she's running around. So let's see. Anyway, it's wonderful to have you here, Robertson Liss, and it's very exciting for us. And as far as I know, you screen share, which is even better, because if you ask me to do it, I'd say I don't know, but Baruch Hashem, I have Anita in the background helping me. And I just wanted to ask also if tonight, and you can add anybody that you would like to learn for or whatever, but I would like to please do this Le'ilu Nishmas Gittel Perol Scheindel, and I'm waiting. I don't have her full her mum's name, but Hashem knows exactly who she is, a young mother who was nifta last week, just on the eve of her son's bar mitzvah, and he got his aliyah Torah, and she got that nachas. But as I said to a friend who was here just before, I said she's getting a lot more nachas now that she is in the world of truth, and as Hashem together we can certainly do something in our little world of learning. And I'm very excited to see and to listen to what you have to share with us, because this is one of the world's problems. So thank you for being with us. And then you'll tell us about your book when you are in the middle of speaking. We love this, it's great. And it's a pleasure for us to have you here with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joanne. And thank you, everybody. I think it's a little grainy, but that's fine because you don't need my face, and we're going to be doing screen share soon anyway. So hello, so lovely to sort of half see you all, and thank you, Joanne, for this opportunity. So I wanted to tell you, start off with a personal story of something that happened to me 2 days ago, which is we had a Rabbis and Rebbetzins and Educators conference called Aleinu recently, and I was discussing with a colleague about a session that we were going to run called the Rebbetzins Expectations versus Reality. And whilst we were discussing about the discussion, it came up thinking about how often in our jobs there are certain things that we do that we don't really enjoy doing, and certain things that we would really like to do that we don't have the opportunity to do. So after having spoken through with a colleague, I was thinking to myself, is there anything in my job that I don't have an opportunity to do that I actually would like to do? And what popped up in my head is I'd actually really like to be able to give a share, and I don't always have an opportunity to do so. So that evening, Joanne sent me a text and said, I know it's a bit late notice, but would you mind giving the share this week? So I was laughing and thinking, okay, Hashem, so thank you very much for listening to my thoughts. I didn't actually articulate those thoughts to anybody, but Hashem heard, and Hashem gave me this opportunity. So thank you all for being here, for giving me the opportunity to share, hopefully, words of Torah that will inspire you and bring you closer. Usually when I give a share, I like to make it more of a discussion. I know it's not so easy on Zoom, but feel free to ask questions if that's possible. I don't know if they can do it in the chat box. I do
they
like
can either chat box, or you won't usually have too many people shouting at the same time, so they could probably even unmute and ask the question.
Okay, perfect. Yes, because I will be starting off with a question, so it'll be interesting to hear a couple of answers to start with. So yes, and I like to start before I speak, I say Hashem sefasai tiftach ufi yagid tehillatcha. So whenever we start our davening in the Amidah, which is the quiet prayer, that we say 3 times a day, we ask Hashem to open up our lips and let the words that come out be his praise. So when I open up my lips, it's not always Hashem's praise that comes out. And I hope and pray that these words will be meaningful for you all. So I'm going to do the screen share now. Let's see if this works. Share sound. Okay. Share. Are you with me? From beginning. Yeah. Can everybody see?
No, we've said, oh, there we go. There we go. It's there.
There. Okay. So the only thing is I can see this PowerPoint, but I can't see all of you. So I can't see your facial expressions. So you'll have to, I don't know, put it in the chat box for me to see. Okay, yeah, go Joanne. I can see yours. So the question is, am I good enough? I think it's a question that some of us might be asking maybe a few times a day. Is what I'm doing good enough? My question to you is this a question that you feel your answer is yes, or you feel the answer is no? So I'd love to see how I can actually see everybody. You know what, Joanne, you can just tell me the answers. If you can see people better than I can, you can tell me the general answer. So if the question is, am I good enough? How do you feel? How many yeses?
Do you know what? I'm also on. Let me quickly try and see if I can get there. Is anybody needs? Can
I ask a question?
Yes.
Why do you think we are asking ourselves this the whole time? I don't know. Yes, we are doing it, but I know we shouldn't be.
Okay, so that's a helpful question, because interesting, you're saying we are doing it, but we shouldn't be. So
I feel that we are comparing the whole time. The social media, we're comparing, we're worrying, we're thinking about what everybody else is doing. And sometimes it's positive, but very often you just can't do everything and you can't be everywhere. It's impossible.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I can't see who shared it, but whoever you are.
Sorry, it's Anita Cohen from Gibraltar.
Anita.
I was going to say I couldn't see you before, but I know the voice, so there we go.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Anita. So
sorry, I'm cooking as well. So
no, I'm delighted because you've asked the question. You've asked the question that we're feeling. So should we be thinking that? Should we even be asking the question? So I have a question to start with, even before we get to am I good enough or am I not good enough? What do we define? Who are we, in whose eyes are we thinking am I good enough? Am I good enough in my eyes? Am I good enough in my boss's eyes? Am I good enough in my friend's eyes? Am I good enough in my husband's, in my family, in, I don't know, the shopkeeper? Who am I asking, am I good enough? Am I good enough in Hashem's eyes? What is, when we ask that question, it really depends who you're talking to, whether you're good enough. And the question is what, and actually you just answered the first question I was going to think of, is what makes us feel that we're not good enough? And the answer to that question Anita just gave is when we compare with others. Now, Joanne, when she asked me to speak, originally she asked me to speak about the Parsha, but being there was slight short notice, I didn't have something on the Parsha. But if we look at the Parsha, this week's Parsha is when Jacob has all his sons around him. It's the end of his life, and he decides to give a bracha to each and every one. Now, if you can imagine, if you've got siblings and your parents were deciding to give you a bracha, and they went around the table and said, well, you're really good at this, and you're really bad at that, and don't do that, and do this, and you're going to be the king, and you're going to be the one who takes everybody from the back, and you're going to be the person who travels on ships. How would you feel about being sort of given your individual roles amongst lots of family members? So I feel like siblings definitely have that sense of comparison. Well, she got 4 A's in her A levels and I didn't, or she passed her driving test first and I didn't. And there's a lot of stress involved in looking at siblings. And you think about how Jacob, so he did it just before he died. So he gave these instructions and said to each person, this is your role. Let's not look at other people's roles. This is what you need to do, and you focus on your role. So that question of, am I good enough? It depends if I'm comparing to someone else. And if I'm comparing to someone else, I'll always be stressed, because we can never quite know what someone else is going through, what difficulties they're going through, or what talents and abilities they have. For example, sleep. Some people need a lot of sleep, some people need less sleep, and you'll see someone else, they managed to do so many things and I didn't. So we can completely become overwhelmed when we look at other people's successes. As you said, if you're looking at social media, you're constantly inundated with other people's successes. You don't see the picture before that picture. You don't see the, oh, I burnt the supper. You see the second version of the supper that's beautiful and clear, and they tidied up the room behind it. So avoiding comparing with others will help about, am I good enough? But there's other things that we need to look at and decide, am I good enough? And when we're not comparing with others, we're just looking at ourselves and our own judgment of ourselves, I guess. Does that answer that question, Anita?
Yes, it does. It does answer the question. Thank you.
Okay.
But how do we? So then, basically, we shouldn't be comparing. That's quite key, and just try and do your best, I assume.
Yeah, but we'll still have other things in our head, and we'll move on to the next slide. You might not be able to see the side one because for me, yeah,
I can see it. I can
you can see it. So I really like the first one with the good enough shop and the perfect shop. So the perfect shop is opening soon. Maybe it's opening, it's closed. Whereas the good enough shop just opens. So often when we're thinking to ourselves, it has to be right, it has to be perfect, it has to be good, then it actually leads to inactivity and we don't do things because it all has to be good. Whereas if it's just, it's good enough, then it will start. And then there's the second one, which I just thought was quite humorous. I don't know if you can actually see it. Can you all see the second one?
You can't actually see all of it.
Yeah, I was going to say,
delicate balance between. Can you move it or not?
I've moved the screen down, but now I actually can't see anything over here. Yeah, so I've moved. If you move the screen with all the faces down, you can see it. So it's just two friends discussing. It's a delicate balance between being good enough that you can still get your presents, but not so good that you can't bug your sister.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all still human. I think for me, good enough means I'm human. I'm working on a journey. Nobody's going to be perfect in this world. Okay, so I don't know if you've heard of Erica Brown, but she wrote an excellent essay on the concept of being good enough. And she asked a good question, which is, it all depends on how you define good. So if you see what it says in Devarim, it says you should do that which is right and good in the sight of the Lord. So you should do everything that's right in the eyes of Hashem. But the question is, what is right? Lots of people have different ideas of what is right. So reading what it says over here, I'm just wondering if we can get somebody else to read. Joanne, do you want to just read what it says?
This week, I spoke with someone on the phone who asked me several questions about Sabbath observance. He told me he found it interesting, but was raised as a Catholic and is now lapsed. I don't really believe in any religion. I don't have a faith. I raised my children with one principle. Naturally, I was curious and asked him to share his singular distilled value. It's simple. Don't be a jerk. I couldn't help it. John, if you don't mind my saying, that's quite a low bar.
So when we're looking at ourselves and we're judging ourselves and we're saying, oh, is this good enough? It depends on what our definition of good is and how high that has to be. And Erica Brown goes on in her essay to describe that actually we need to look at the Torah in order to see what is good and what is required of us. And we need to have certain standards to make those comparisons and then say, am I good enough? Some people, there's this concept of good is wherever I am and what I'm doing. So you've got those people who are, what I'm doing is fine, what the other people are doing is fanatical and extreme and not necessary, and what some of the other people are doing is really not enough. So I'm just fine. And I think that we sometimes do that because we want to feel okay about ourselves, but actually, are we growing and are we changing? Because we've just put ourselves in the good place and we've moved others to, well, they're just a bit extreme or fanatical. You don't need to be that religious, or I don't need to be, or the other people are really not doing enough and they should. But actually, instead of judging the other people, look at ourselves and think, is this good and right in the eyes of Hashem? The best way to find that one out is learn, keep learning, keep growing. Okay, moving on. So Rabbi Sachs, I love Rabbi Sachs's writing. Every time I read it, it's such a loss to the community that he's no longer here with us, but an incredible person. Uh-oh, I've lost you. Does this mean you've lost me? Am I back?
You're there. You're there.
Okay, I'm here. Fine.
There.
So Rabbi Sachs had an incredible knowledge of both the Jewish texts and writings and also secular writings. So he asked this question about the way that humankind looks at itself. let me see if there's someone else but Sheva, do you want to read the first thing? Edmund Leach.
Sure. Edmund Leach, professor of anthropology at Cambridge, with their opening sentences, men have become like gods. Isn't it about time that we understood our divinity? I sensed that something was going wrong in Western civilization. We are not gods, and bad things happened when people thought that they were.
So here we have two different extremes about a way a person thinks of themselves. So we sometimes find that mankind, and I think that humankind, if I think about the generations now, I work a lot with children and youth, and there's a lot of confidence there that we know so much. There's Google, there's good quality education, there's science. So we know everything. We know exactly how the world works. We understand it, and we are great and we are fabulous, which I think is one extreme of thinking that we're like God, we can do everything. And nowadays, thank God, Hashem has given us the opportunity to do a lot of things. And on the other hand, you have science and scientists who describe it differently. But Sheva, you can keep going.
Can I just say on this point that there's a thing saying that in one pocket you meant to believe the world was created for me, and the other one that think you are like the dust of the earth. It's
beautiful.
Like,
that's the next slide. Go, Sheva.
Sorry. Okay.
Perfect.
Voltaire described humans as insects devouring one another on a little atom of mud. The late Stephen Hawking stated that the human race is just a chemical scum on a moderate-sized planet orbiting around a very average star in the outer suburb of one amongst a billion galaxies. The philosopher John Gray declared that human life has no more meaning than that of sly mold.
I mean, could you imagine? I just think when I look at these things, I think if I thought that my existence was so irrelevant and unimportant and meant nothing, then why would I care? What would I do? So you've got two extremes here. And Rabbi Sachs obviously synthesizes the two and explains that we need to see ourselves in both sides, which Sheva just alluded to. So I'm going to I'll just read the bottom at the end of it. It says, without a delicate balance between the divine eternity, so the sense of divinity that we have within us, we have the potential, Hashem has given us, human beings, incredible potential to make change in this world that is meaningful and relevant, and human mortality. But then we're not so strong and we're not so incredible that we can, that we think that we rule the world. So Hashem rules the world, but we still do have power somewhere in between the two. So Sheva sort of alluded to this. We have the Jewish sources. So Rabbi Sachs spoke about the non-Jewish sources, and we also have the Jewish sources. So if you think about Abraham, who was one of our who was the person who discovered God, and he led basically a revolution of monotheism. And he turned around and said, here, I ventured to talk to God, but I'm just dust and ashes. So on the one hand, we're holding that I am just dust and ashes. And on the other hand, we have Moses, not on the other hand, because Moses felt the same way. Moses said, who am I that I should go to Paro? He thought, I'm just a nobody. What can I do? Until Hashem said to him, well, you will become something great because I've asked you to step into that role. And the other side, you have the Mishnah in Sanhedrin, which says, therefore, every person must say, for my sake, the world was created. So all these concepts, they help us in our mind to see ourselves as two parts. There's one part, which is I have potential, I can achieve greatness. And on the other side, I'm not so great and I can't hold myself up high, that I'm good enough. And sometimes good enough can mean I'm not going to change. I just am where I am.
I've just got a question.
Okay. Yes.
Isn't there, like, who am I but dust and ashes, meant to be a symbolism of like humility?
Absolutely. So the question is, when you have too much humility, if you're just holding on to I am dust and ashes, then you may think, I can't really do anything because I'm just dust and ashes. I don't really know how to do this. I can't get up and help that person because I'm only little, and why will somebody listen to me? So sometimes humility can actually hold us back. You can't just have humility. You need to also have, actually, Hashem created the world for me. There is something unique in this world that I can do that nobody else can do. Otherwise, Hashem wouldn't have made me. So you need both sides to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so this is all, I feel like for me, this is in theory, this is ideas, but I'm very, very practical. And I find that it's great to have a good concept of who I am, but it's more important for me to think practically, how am I going to live with this? What's going to happen when different things come in my mind? When I lived in Israel, it was here in England, it was through Zoom. I used to attend some classes from Sari Chaved Rigler, who is a great educator in the old city of Israel and a fascinating person. I think she's spent 10 years.
We do merit to have her on our Zoom every now and again, and she'll be teaching us next week in Eretz Yisrael.
Fabulous. And she's great. And she spent 10 years in an ashram. So she has so much knowledge and experience of different places. She's fabulous. So she taught me this concept. Okay, which is you have the comfort zone, you have the stretch zone, and you have the panic zone. So most of us like to hang out in the comfort zone. The comfort zone is the place that we feel familiar, we feel safe, we're doing what we usually do, we're getting up at the time we usually get up, we're talking to people we're comfortable talking to, we're wearing clothes we're comfortable wearing, we are doing the job that we feel safe in. All of those things is the comfort zone. It's lovely, it's wonderful, but it's not growing, it's not moving. On the other hand, you have the red around the circle where you have, I'm working too hard, I'm pushing too much, I'm trying to do 100 things and I can't manage it. I'm trying to be the best at my job, I'm trying to be the best mother, I'm trying to be the best worker, I'm trying to be the best friend, the best daughter. I'm working. I want to be really, really thin, I want to be really, really strong, I want to be, I don't know, beautiful. I'm working all the time, but I can't breathe because I'm working so hard. So you've got the comfort zone, the chilled, everything's fine, I'm relaxed. You've got the, I've pushed myself too hard, I can't breathe. And then you've got in between, which is called the stretch zone. The stretch zone is where you push yourself just a little bit out of your limits. Just a place where, okay, so I know I need, let's say 8 hours of sleep. So I'm going to get up 5 minutes earlier to make sure that when I deal with the world, I don't sort of like get hit by the world, but I actually deal with the world. I talk to Hashem for 5 minutes before the day starts. Or I'm not so comfortable talking to someone else in shul because I don't really like other people, but I see that this woman looks like she's a bit along on her own. I'm going to push myself a little bit out there and go over to her and say hello. Or it can be in any area, and maybe any of you can give me ideas of something that's in the stretch zone. So when we're living in the stretch zone, we are actually working on ourselves to get that little bit further, to make ourselves grow further. And I can give you an example in the physical sense, which is exercise. So you can either just be a couch potato and not want to do any exercise, or you can push yourself to climb up a mountain and it's too much and you're exhausted. Or you can say, I'm going to do 5 minutes a day of fast walking. Just, I'm going to get myself going. When you push yourself, you feel great. If you can be bothered, if you make that energy, that small step upwards changes your reality because you've now grown. But it is called the stretch zone. Can anybody give me an example of a stretch zone for them? Maybe too personal a question.
Hello.
Yeah.
My name is Sarita Pels. I live in Edgeware. I'm Dutch. And I get up every morning at 4:30, do Nagelwasser, in order to follow Daf Yomi from Ranana in Israel, led by a woman, by the famous Michelle Farber. And it's a great, great joy. It's not a mitzvah. And I'm really happy that I don't have to put on tefillin, but it's making my day.
Wow. That's
impressive.
Very impressive. Very impressive. I imagine it wasn't so easy to do at the beginning, but once you got used to it, that was your schedule. So
it's addictive.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so I haven't read what it actually says over here. The comfort zone is a behavioral state in which a person operates in an anxiety neutral condition. So anxiety neutral condition basically means I don't have to put in any energy. I don't have to put in work. This is kind of like, it's a bit robotic, really. It's like I go through my day. I know what's safe. I know what's comfortable. I have my friendship group and I'm not stretching. So the way Sarah Chaved Rigler put it to us is that every day we should think to ourselves, am I stretching somewhere? And the stretching doesn't need to be, I mean, I think it was the most beautiful thing you shared, but 4:30 in the morning is not happening to me. But and not to Joanne either. So it's fabulous that you're able to do that. But even if it's about stopping in the middle of the day, putting an alarm on for 5 minutes in the middle of the day and stopping and thanking Hashem for what happened that morning, or thanking Hashem for your help, or even when your health, or even when you're actually making a bracha, taking a moment to say that slowly, that is stretch zone, because it's something that you weren't doing before that you've decided to do now. And there's always inertia within us. We much rather stay in the comfort zone. But also equally, we do need to know that there does exist this panic zone. And sometimes when people are inspired and they want to change and they want to grow and they really want to do everything, that's also no good, because it's not lastable. We can't do it. And that's when we become, am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I good enough? So we need to have that question a bit more relaxed, but we don't want to ignore the question at all. We don't want to just say, oh, I'm always fine. I'm not always fine, because we are growing. We're in a state of motion. Okay, so I wish I could tell you who taught me this, but I don't remember who taught me this. So you can see this lady, and she's got two options. And this is something that the person who taught me, or whoever I heard it from, I use it quite often. Sometimes you can have a thought in your head and think, I did something wrong. I shouldn't have done it. I've made a mistake. I'm not good enough. And actually, maybe you did make a mistake, and maybe there should be changes, and you shouldn't ignore the thought. But maybe the thought is, we think it's the Yetzer Hara, we think it's the Yetzer Tov, we think it's a good thought, because, I should be thinking about introspection. If I did something wrong, I should think about it. It's the right thing to do. But if it's too heavy, then it's not helpful, but it sounds like a very religious and inspirational thought. Yes, I should be thinking I've done something wrong. So if you're in a mind and you're thinking, what should I do now? You have two options. On the left-hand side, you have the lady who's pulled her covers over her head because it's just too much. I can't do it. I made a mistake. I'm bad. Everything I've done is wrong. And I just want to hide and go under the covers. So there's that feeling that sometimes can happen if you've done something wrong. Or the other feeling of, yup, I did that wrong. I yelled at my kids. I shouted at a friend. I drove through a red light. I did things wrong. I wasn't honest in my business dealings. I did something wrong. And now I want to make amends. Now I'm going to do something better. So the way to work out when you're having a thought of, am I good enough? Is it a helpful thought? Is what is this thought going to lead me to do? If this thought is going to lead me to go and get a bar of chocolate because I just want to calm myself down because I'm in a really bad mood, that I've done something wrong, then I know that that thought isn't helpful. But if that thought makes me think, yes, I've done something wrong, I'm still a good person, but I need to correct it, and give me a plan of how to correct it, then the thought becomes helpful. So whenever I have a thought in my mind, I can analyze that thought and think, is it helpful? Is it going to lead me to become better? Or is it leading me to want to hide away, to want to just stop thinking because it's too much and I've done bad? And I'll give you a personal example that I'm quite a passionate person, which can be useful at times and not so useful when you're running a house with lots of kids, because I can have a bit of a temper. So many years ago, or however many years ago, when I got angry with the kids, I used to get so frustrated with myself and annoyed with myself that I stomped around the house. I wasn't necessarily yelling anymore because I stopped yelling, but I hated myself. I was annoyed with myself. Why can't I be a nice mother? Why every morning do I wake up and think today's going to be different? Then I'm still annoyed. But it didn't help me. It didn't make me any better. It just made me miserable and annoyed. Whereas once I started to learn to actually accept myself and love myself, even if I made a mistake, and say to myself, okay, you did something wrong, go to your room, calm down, like just be okay, and let's come out. I now have an opportunity to smile and be nice to the children. Sometimes even the answer is, okay, I'm going to go and have a rest because actually I'm so tired, I'm in a bad mood. So if I take a break, I'll come back out again. And it really has made a difference, because I'm not saying I don't still yell, because I definitely do things wrong still, and there are moments when I behave badly, but those moments when I behave badly, instead of it perpetuating, the problem perpetuating, when me saying I'm not good enough, I did something wrong, it's moved into, I've done something wrong, now what? Now what can I do? Now I can do something right. I can go outside, I can apologize. It's nothing to do with you. I was just having a hard day. I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have said that. And we move on. So that's, I found for me, and I don't remember who told me, I found it really practical way of looking at my thoughts, taking a step out of myself, and instead of having those overwhelming thoughts of I want to run away because it's so painful thinking whether I'm good enough, it becomes something positive of I've done something, what can I do now? What will be helpful now? Okay, any questions before we move on? No? I'm just not used to talking so much because I always ask other people, so okay.
They're obviously very happy with it, Shuli, otherwise you'd have everybody up there.
Or they're asleep, but that's also
No,
fine.
no,
Because sleep
no.
is useful, or they're really good in their Shabbos preparations. Okay, next slide. Okay, have any of you ever climbed a mountain?
Yes, Mount Snowdon.
Oh yeah, we did it
Mount
together.
Snowdon. Mount
Yeah.
Snowdon.
You also did Mount Snowdon. Great. So who the second person who said Mount Snowdon? What was your name?
Rosie.
Rosie.
Rosie Tepper.
Hi, Rosie. Nice to
Hi.
meet you.
Hi.
Yeah, so Rosie, when you climbed the mountain, how did you feel along the way?
I was finished after the first 20 minutes.
20
but
minutes?
20 minutes, because it was just before you even start the mountain, there's a massive climb up, really
Oh.
steep gradient. And I didn't know how I was going to get to the top, but I just pushed myself. My kids helped me. My daughter carried my backpack, and we just kept going and got there in the end. But yeah, before you even start, it's really tiring because there's a gradient just to get to the beginning, you know.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but it was perseverance, really.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry I questioned when you said finished. I thought you meant I finished the whole
Oh,
journey
no,
in
I was
20
finished.
minutes. So that's why I said finished. Like, how do you climb 4
Oh,
hours
no,
in 20
I was
minutes?
finished. I was literally, my
I
face
get-
was red as a beetroot.
Yes. I get it.
You see, Shuli, I got what she said because I would be finished too.
And I'm doing that comparison thing where I'm thinking, oh my gosh, wow, she finishes it in 20 minutes. I could never do that. So, okay, so now I've got that. I can actually relate to that because I try to run. We have a running machine at home. Thank you, Hashem. It's a huge gift. And I try to run 3 times a week, 5K. I don't always manage. This week I only managed twice, whatever. But always the first 5 minutes for me are the hardest because I'm sitting there going, I can't do this. It's too long. I can't. I'm so tired. And I think that part of that is in our minds, there's so much more to go.
Yes.
So
yeah.
those first 5, you know, there's you're struggling. It's a steep hill. It's the hardest bit, and you're thinking, I've got a whole nother, 3 hours worth of this. I could never do this.
Yeah.
So one of the tips that somebody gave me when I was climbing a mountain, I think probably my father, because my father helped us climb mountains in our summer holidays, was fabulous, is turn around and look back. And when you turn around and look back and you see what you have climbed, then you feel like, wow, I've done something. I can do something. I'll be able to get a bit further. If we're constantly looking forward at all the things we still have to do or we still need to get to, then we'll feel sad because we'll just feel I'm never going to get there. And that hill that, you look at this woman's looking at those mountains and it just looks like forever. But if we keep turning back and looking back and saying, well, actually, I did accomplish this before, and maybe I did do something good yesterday, then that will give us encouragement when I'm having those thoughts of, am I good enough? For the moment, I have done something. And yes, there's more to go. This is like one of my favorite phrases. It is not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. So our job in this world is to keep on climbing. That's all we can do. We don't need to get to the top of the mountain because perfection is not within our reach. We just need to keep on climbing. And as long as we're climbing, as long as we're moving, as long as we're in that stretch zone, we are accomplishing huge, huge amounts. And Hashem is with us, holding us. So bringing back to a couple of points from the Torah that Rabbi Sachs spoke about. He spoke about the spies and he spoke about Noah. So if you think about Noah's generation, he tried, he had a bit of a difficult position because he had the whole world thinking one way and him thinking something else. So Hashem had told him, build an ark. He's building an ark and all the rest of the people are laughing at him. And he didn't, one of the, the rabbis say one of the criticisms of him is that he didn't actually try to talk to the others and encourage them to change. And one of the reasons he didn't is because he didn't think he could. He didn't think he actually had the ability to make a difference. He thought himself not strong enough to make a difference. And it's the same thing with the spies, because the spies were about to enter the land of Israel. And, they said they saw themselves kachagovim, they saw themselves as grasshoppers. They weren't grasshoppers, but they saw themselves as grasshoppers. And I really like the phrase that Rabbi Sachs quoted. Joanne, you want to read?
The truth is that in no small measure, a law of self-fulfilling prophecy applies in the human arena. Those who say we cannot do it are probably right, as are those who say we can. If you lack confidence, you will lose.
So when we're thinking about, am I good enough? Often that question will become self-limiting, because I think I'm not good enough to make a difference. And I often feel like we read in the papers, you'll read in the papers, or you'll get a WhatsApp about somebody who's not well, or somebody who needs help, or a difficult situation. And you might think in your head, oh, maybe I could send them a cake. Maybe I could say a prayer. Maybe I could ask someone else to help them with something. Maybe there's something I could do. But then there's the other thing in your head of, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not one of these, people. I'm not a macher. I'm not a person who gets involved in these things. I'm just a little person. Why will somebody listen to me? But actually that thought stops us from making change and stops us from growing and helping people. So when we have the thought of, I can't make change, I can make change. And even if it is just a little drop in the ocean, that each person doing a drop in the ocean will make a change. So the lesson that Rabbi Sachs taught me is always look for the positive and look for the way that you can make a change. Don't limit yourself with your thoughts of, I'm not big enough to be able to do that. I'm actually quite small and very noisy. So I really have that. You have to like, I just had to make noise because I was just small. But I'm not small enough to keep going and to keep trying, even if maybe, yes, somebody will laugh at me, and maybe, yes, somebody will think, why are you the person doing it? But it doesn't matter. And I'll leave up. Look at the next one. I know we're almost done. You've done amazingly. I love this one. So we were talking about good enough. So we were talking about good enough in the spiritual sense, but what about good enough in the physical sense? And I think this is basically what the cosmetic world, the clothing world has spent huge amounts of money of convincing ourselves that we do not look good enough and we need change and we need to look better. I put up a mirror over there because if you look at the mirror, most people who look at the mirror will see what isn't good enough. I have a little bit of this over here, or my nose is to this, or my face is to this. The minute we look in the mirror, it becomes a stress of what is not good enough. And actually in the physical world, it's very rare to find somebody who turns around and says, oh, I look great. Even the best models, recently saw somebody who was so beautiful, just so beautiful. And her mother explained to me that she absolutely doesn't realize it at all. She doesn't think it at all. She does, she thinks she's got this problem, but she's beautiful. So in the physical sense, we are always feeling incomplete, always not feeling good enough. And actually there's something that I think is the most amazing thing, which is that if you think about our face, we look outwards. You can't see your face unless you consciously make a decision to look in the mirror. So I just avoid looking in the mirror. That's my solution. More important than what I look like is who I am. People enjoy spending time with somebody who's kind, who's helpful. What am I doing with my life that changes me, not what I look like? Obviously, you have to look in the mirror sometimes, like just before you go out and you realize you've got this like random piece hanging out. So we do need to look in the mirror occasionally, but the least amount of time we spend focusing on the physical, the happier we will be. And the picture I did of the train, I'm sure you've seen, I don't know if you've ever seen the book, I think it's called The Moving Tale by Gadi Pollack, has a lot of really clever life lessons done in story form. So it's nice for children, but I feel like it's nice for adults as well. And he has this picture of this person who decided to go on a train, who was going to meet somebody at the end of his journey. And he was very excited to go on the train. The train was a 4-hour journey, and he spent the car journey making it really, really pretty. So he added some nice decorations to the side. He put on a lovely comfy cushion. He made sure his journey was fabulous. The person sitting next to him was also going to meet the other person, but he spent his time preparing for that meeting. He was looked up about the person. He did the research, what books he'd written. He read some of his books. He wanted to make sure that when he got to the end of the journey, he had something to say to the person he was going to meet. Whereas this other person spent all his life decorating the journey. And it was a great mashal, a great parable for our lives. In our life, ultimately, at the end of our life, we are going to meet Hashem, and we will only be spiritual. We will be souls, and our body is not there anymore, and it is irrelevant. And you think about the person who sat on that journey and spent so long making it beautiful, or we make our houses beautiful, or we make our hair beautiful, or we dress ourselves in beautiful clothes. We spend all this time concentrating on something that will not come with us at the end of the journey. At the end of the journey, we will meet Hashem, and we will have a relationship with Hashem. And the stronger our relationship with Hashem, the more beautiful the meeting is at the end of our lives. Not only that, but throughout our lives, having a relationship with Hashem is of incredible importance. And when I think about coming back to, am I good enough? In Hashem's eyes, as long as we are on the journey, as long as we're climbing, as long as we're moving, as long as we're in the stretch zone, as long as we're trying a little bit every day to become closer to Hashem, we are absolutely, absolutely precious in Hashem's eyes, and we are absolutely good enough. Okay, so summary, because it's 9:13, so I've got...
There's just Aviva Pels. I don't know if she's put her hand up on her screen. I don't know if
Aviva.
Yeah, I would love to hear the name of the book or the story again that you just mentioned.
Okay, so it's called A Moving Tale. I think it's called A Moving Tale by Gadi Pollack.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Fabulous book. So I've got 2 minutes to summarize. So number one is those 2 pockets. Hold these
we're not that strict. You can relax.
Oh, okay, fine. I thought I wouldn't be able to talk so much, but I'm like just quite.
There you go. We've shown you how you've stretched yourself tonight.
Thank you. Definitely stretched myself. Thank you, Joanne, for the opportunity. Okay, so 2 pockets. Whenever you're feeling, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? On the one hand, I am made of dust and ashes. And on the other hand, Hashem made this world specially for me. There's something that I can do, no one else can do. Number 2, if I'm feeling too stressed and I think there's too much to do further along and I'm not good enough, I haven't done something, turn around, look back, see what you have done. Number 3, stretch zone. Don't stay in the comfort zone. Don't think, oh yeah, I'm good enough. This is just who I am. That's another thing. Some people say, look, I've just got a mouth. I'm just honest. I just tell everybody what I think. And that's just who I am. But actually, you can't be like that. Even if you do have a mouth and you say things honestly, you still need to work on it. So we can't just say, I am who I am. I'm staying in my comfort zone. That's who I am. I need to work on myself to become better, but not too much and too harsh and too intense, which would be in the stress zone. We can't be in the stress zone. We can't be working on ourselves too hard every day. I have to. No, one small thing, that's good. That's one part. Number 4, is this thought helpful? If I'm thinking, oh, I'm so bad, I've done this wrong, I shouldn't have done this wrong. If it's leading me to want to run away, to go and to hide under my covers, not see anybody or talk to anybody anymore because I'm just too embarrassed. I've definitely had those days, just by the way, where like I've done the wrong thing and I'm thinking, I just can't do this. I can't, people think I know what I'm doing and really I've done everything wrong. And then I have to get out of that and say, actually, I'm human. I made a mistake. What am I going to do now? Next step. Number 5, I can do this. Rabbi Sachs's comment. So whatever, when I'm having a thought of I'm not strong enough, I'm not big enough, I'm not important enough to be able to do this, I am, because Hashem put me here. And also, if Hashem helped me to actually notice what's happening, like if I notice someone else's pain, that means that I have the opportunity, Hashem's given me an opportunity to help that person. Because sometimes you can walk into a room and no one else notices that that person's sitting on the side. If you notice, that means that Hashem's given you the opportunity. So tell yourself, I can, because Hashem wouldn't have shown me that if I couldn't. Number 6, small steps. Don't work too hard, and no martyrs. That's also one of my favorite things, because I'm a little bit of a martyr. And I'll give you an example. I had a friend who used to say to me, when you want to share, when you want to be helpful, make sure you do it for fun and for free. Don't turn around and then be resentful afterwards. So I'll give you an example. One of my kids will ask me for a lift. I'm really tired. I don't want to give them a lift. I will give them a lift, but I'll be kvetching the whole way through that I'm tired and I don't want to be in the car. So I didn't really help them, because yes, I went out of my comfort zone, but I'm not happy about it. And I'm moaning and I'm just being unpleasant. So better to be realistic with yourself and try to do a little bit more, but don't push yourself to a place where you're going to help, but you're going to be annoyed or overtired or frustrated with someone else because I said yes to someone else. And number 7 is, we are never pretty enough. I mean, maybe you all are, but it's very hard to find a feeling within us of, I look good, I feel good, you know, my weight is good, my clothes are good. Most people, and that's actually what we're kind of programmed to do, is to keep looking and saying it's not good enough, it's not good enough. So better not to think about that part of ourselves at all, and think my aim in life is spiritual growth, not like physical growth or physical beauty, etc. I think that's it. Yeah, so thank you all so much for joining me.
That was really, really lovely. So thank you. And I think you actually did brilliantly. So for somebody who was thinking, shouldn't I? But you know what? I just think it really is incredible, Shuli. When I sat there, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to try Shuli. And Hashem just puts these things. When you said that to me, that you were thinking about that, I thought, like, you know, isn't it amazing how Hashem really, really, really just sort of puts these things in our head, and he helps us to really accomplish and look at this. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to quickly grab, hang on. What about your book, Shuli? Thank you. Who is Jules? Excellent message, and really needed to hear that. Thank you. And that's from Roxy. So Jules says, what about your book, Shuli? You tell them about the book while I run and get my challah, okay?
Okay, sure. So
that was me, Juliet.
Hi, Juliet. nice to hear your voice. Thank you. So I have a book that basically I wrote to the community during COVID. Well, before COVID, I used to write to community sporadically, and then during COVID, when I really didn't get to see anyone in the community, I felt like it was important to maintain a connection and to give a little bit of inspiration. On Friday or Thursday, I wrote a message each week, and eventually we decided to put those messages into a book. So they are small messages of hope. They're about a page long, and just a little idea of inspiration. The book is produced by United Synagogue, and it's available on the United Synagogue website. I think I sent Joanne the link, so Joanne can share it.
I'll share it.
If anybody's interested. It's also available, I think, in some of the Jewish bookstores. So yeah, and I'm writing more books, so please God, one day. I'm also trying to write children's books, but bit by bit.
Stretch yourself.
Well, if anyone knows children's publishers, Jewish children publishers, I've written a set of books on like little picture books for kids about the Jewish holidays, and they're written in a way that will give the children, it's a nice picture book, it's got pictures, but it also gives the children an understanding about what each holiday is about. So it's about Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, Purim, Hanukkah, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and I haven't published them yet, but they are all available.
Speak to Rabbi Daniel Fine, because we've had a couple of publications from Seed on candle lighting, Benny's Dream. I don't know, my candle lighting was on the table a minute ago, but Benny's Dream, and he has published a number of these. So speak to Rabbi Daniel Fine, and
Okay,
maybe
good.
this whole thing is actually going to turn into from one thing to the next as we go mitzvah goreret mitzvah.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, I will also say that they are available. I'm very happy to send them to anybody in PDF format, because so far I've just shared them for free, because I'm not actually interested in like I just want people to be able to use them. So I'm very happy to share them on a PDF if you want to be able to, you know, look at it with your kids or give it to grandchildren or friends who've got children, whatever. Okay.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to, just as we do every week, last week I was actually in Eretz Yisrael, and amazing. And I was zeicher to spend Shabbos together with my mother and my sisters and family. And I'm very happy to say that this Matzei Shabbos, I'm on my way again. So in Yitzhak Hashem, we should have good things. So here we go. I've got my bags of my dough sitting on the chair. Here we go. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu, b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu, la'afish chala min ha'isa, harei zu chala. In the merit of the mitzvah of Prashas Chala, we should all merit to greet Mashiach very soon. We should merit to stretch ourselves in a place of comfort and give Hashem a lot of nachas for making sure that we reach our real potential, and that Emir Hashem should spread from our little zone all the way across and be dancing together soon with the Beis HaMikdash. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, Shuli.
Thank you.
Rebbe
Good
Liss.
night.
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Thank you,
Good
Malka.
night.
And you can tell, I hope Yitzhak watched and you got lots of nachas.
Thank you.
Hashem, and it's lovely to see those. And let's all just continue with what we're doing and just continue to just grow, to do better, to be kinder, and to make the world a better place to be. Okay, have a
Thank you.
beautiful Shabbos, good Erev Shabbos,
Shabbos, thank
and
you.
make a beautiful Shabbos.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good Shabbos, everybody. Good
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Very nice.